Food mascots were a staple of growing up in the 90s and early 2000s. I mean, let's give a hand to Cheezosaurus Rex, the Taco Bell Chihuahua, and Eggo Man, and some withstand the test of time, but then there's one that is still seen as the mascot, but has kind of stepped away from the limelight, and the world wants to know.
Where are you, Ronald?
Where have you been, Ronald?
I miss you, Ronald. Where have you been?
Where are you, Ronald?
Where in the world is Ronald McDonald? San Diego.
If you were a kid in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, you might be familiar with a certain clown that would pop up on your TV.
Did somebody say McDonald's?
Yes, Ronald McDonald, the mascot of his namesake, McDonald's. The guy is an icon, but these days you don't see a lot of him. And really, why is that? Because he is technically a part of McDonald's and is still very much seen as their mascot along with the other classic characters. But for whatever reason, he's left out these days. Like, you don't see him in commercials anymore, no more toys with his face on it. Loved me some plush Ronald and the Halloween toys. He was like a major celebrity back then. A lot of McDonald's had a bench with a statue of him to take pictures. You could have a birthday party at McDonald's and he would show up. Hell, I even remember at my local McDonald's growing up that they had a big event inviting him and there were spotlights flashing, a red carpet, and everything. But today you only really see him in like major events like the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, but really those types of events are few and far between. Though to make sure I'm not just like oblivious to pop culture from over the last decade or so, which is a high possibility, I asked some other creators to recall the last time they've actually seen Ronald McDonald.
The last time I saw Ronald McDonald out in the media was probably in 2004. There was a commercial called Active Ronald, and I remember it so vividly because it had this very whimsical, cartoony vibe to it. Reminds me of one of my favorite nostalgic aesthetics called Wacky Pomo, which felt very exaggerated. It had this like cut and paste vibe to it. All the people had bigger heads than their bodies. They were doing extreme sports. Ronald was literally bouncing from one activity to another. It was very bright and saturated colors. It had this very high energy, kid-friendly chaos that we all grew up with that I love.
The last time I saw Ronald McDonald was, gosh, probably 15 years ago. One of those like music video commercials almost that had like the little jingle and he was like jumping in the clouds or something. It was a very, very strange but more up-to-date commercial than the ones you typically saw from like the 70s and the 80s.
My latest memory would probably be like 1998 and barely. Like in 98, I was like about maybe 9. But I want to say somewhere in the late 90s is legit the last time I saw Ronald McDonald.
Had it been when he was driving around in his red shoe car, picking up some friends along the way, and going to all the tourist attractions, taking photos.
Had to have been around like 2015. I was graduating high school at that time, so I was really on top of my cable and like stuff like that. So yeah, something around there probably, but I've heard some whispers that he may still be around.
Okay, so it definitely wasn't just me noticing his absence, but if you want to relive some of the 90s and early 2000s, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another nostalgic video. So what happened to it? Well, I did track him down and get some answers, but before we get to that, it's best to start from the beginning. Because while Ronald McDonald has been around for a while, he wasn't the first McDonald's mascot. Meet Speedy, the burger-headed chef? Unclear. But for being the first attempt to add a mascot for the franchise, it made sense. What do they sell? Burgers. And do they make it slow? No, Speedy. Now, Speedy was the mascot from the late 40s through the 50s, though as they leaned more into the golden arches representing the brand, they shifted this mascot and created Archie, a cute McDonald's worker. Though his time was very short-lived, only lasting for a few years in the early 60s, and no one really knows why this mascot was terminated so quickly. Maybe this video should be what happened to Archie. Though many seem to think it was just bland, and others seem to think that there was some confusion with another Archie McDonald at the time, who was a sports broadcaster. So McDonald's swiftly changed mascots and introduced Ronald McDonald. And the original Ronald was quite recognizable. So recognizable, in fact, that this face probably haunted a lot of people's nightmares back then. But yeah, this is the original Ronald McDonald, and it honestly kind of looks like they told some employee to go to the back and make a costume with what they had. But why use a clown to represent this burger brand? I mean, at first glance, it doesn't really make sense, but it also doesn't really have to. The reason they went in this direction was because Bozo the Clown was very popular at the time, so they also wanted to get down and clown. And while the idea of Ronald McDonald stuck, this rendition of him wouldn't last long, as by the mid-60s, we essentially get the look that will stick with Ronald for many years to come. The classic red hair, his clown makeup, and that yellow jumpsuit. Though the personality of this Ronald I found to be very salesy.
This is the place to go after the game, or whenever you play up a big appetite. Why not stop at my house today? McDonald's! It's your kind of place!
But they were about to take this idea and take it to a whole new level. Introducing McDonaldland, a fantasy land where Ronald and his new friends would hang out, and this place was every kid's dream, representing all things McDonald's in a fun and whimsical way. Like the trees had apple pies, the lake was filled with filet-o-fish sandwiches, and the fields grew hamburgers. And with this new world gave us even more McDonald's characters and mascots too, rounding out the whole McDonald's universe. And this version of Ronald is pretty much what we are familiar with today, being less so a spokesperson for McDonald's, and more so a character that is just connected to McDonald's. And McDonaldland and everything that went along with it was a huge success, appearing in commercials throughout the 70s and 80s, being used in McDonald's decor and the play places at various locations. Though this idea did face some legal trouble in its launch, as the Croft brothers, known for their show HR Puffin' Stuff, went on to successfully sue McDonald's for essentially stealing their idea, eventually leading to the use of the actual land in the commercials being phased out, and many of the original characters being phased out as well. Though this still wouldn't stop the success of Ronald and his gang, being featured in more toys, and even their own VHS specials. And they did continue to use the characters in commercials, just at an actual McDonald's location, rather than this magical fantasy world. But commercials around the late 2000s and 2010s did begin to change. We started to see less and less Ronald. Kids themselves were starting to be the stars of these commercials, or the characters in which the Happy Meal toy was promoting. More animation was starting to be used. They also started introducing a new Happy Meal character who was a little creepy. So McDonald's decided on another Ronald revamp, giving him another new look and promising to bring him back onto your TV screen. But I don't think that ever happened. I was only able to find one commercial from 2014, and it doesn't even feature this new look. So guys, what happened?
Do I know what happened to Ronald? Okay, hear me out. He didn't retire. Maybe he just vanished. Maybe he walked into the McDonaldland bald pit and he just never came out. Or a Hamburglar finally got him.
The Hamburglar and Grimace decided to tag team together to kidnap Ronald, put him in a burger padded room, and left him there for years to come.
I mean, if we're just talking like baseline stuff, I'm guessing it's just because clowns aren't as popular anymore. Back when he was getting started, like, that was everything. That was the big deal, clowns, and we just don't see that now, probably thanks to a lot of scary movies.
I'm going to assume it was a marketing push. They were getting rid of the red roofs, the play places, changing the buildings to be more modernized, getting rid of a lot of the themed McDonald's that we've seen back in the day, like the Zoo McDonald's and the Mac Tonight McDonald's, I believe, even got a rework.
Gosh, I don't know what happened to Ronald McDonald. I think 2008 ultimately killed him. I heard he had all his money in Lehman Brothers. Not a wise decision.
For someone that was so prevalent in the media back then, it just really looked like he disappeared one day. But really, McDonald's has always faced some criticism in using a clown for marketing to entice children when the food served isn't deemed as the most healthy option for kids. And this all came to a head in 2011 when a group of health professionals published articles calling for Ronald to be retired, pointing at him as a cause for childhood obesity. Though McDonald's CEO did release a statement that Ronald represents good and happiness, and it's essentially a choice to have a balanced meal and lifestyle, which honestly I totally agree with. The era of Ronald that I grew up with never told me to go out and have a Happy Meal. Like, sure, he's related and is always seen eating one, but most of the time he's out there putting a smile on kids' faces and doing some sort of activity. And kids are marketed stuff all the time. It doesn't mean that, one, they have to go out there and get whatever it is, and two, that it needs to be something that they have on the daily. However, after this whole debacle, Ronald did take a noticeable step back from their advertising, and McDonald's did begin to offer other healthier options with their Happy Meal. But then what might have stopped that 2014 campaign? Well, this is a tricky one. I do think McDonald's was still trying to not stir the pot anymore from what had happened in recent years, so maybe bringing him fully back into the limelight wasn't actually on their radar. Because really, other than that 2014 commercial that I showed earlier, the only other appearance of him we got that year was at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in his new getup, and this is kind of the start of being only at those major events that I mentioned earlier. But really think about it. At this point in time, everybody knows Ronald McDonald. They don't need him in commercials anymore. They bring him out on special occasions so people can freak out when they see him, but really they just don't need him constantly in your face. And this idea became even more solidified in 2016, because you might remember these news stories going around about killer clowns. So yeah, definitely a good push to shelve him for a while as to not be associated with that. But even in more recent years, there's been this big push for nostalgia. I mean, I'm that nostalgic nerd, and McDonald's is definitely aware and is capitalizing on it, because in 2022 they started making these adult Happy Meals, and in the first one it came with collectibles of McDonaldland characters, but no Ronald. And then even more recently we had the Minecraft meal that also featured Birdie, Grimace, and the Hamburglar, but no Ronald. And I just don't get it. The only thing I can think of really is that people are a little creeped out by clowns these days, but we already know your mascot, so just lean into it. And I really thought that McDonald's was starting to shift their true mascot to be Grimace when they released the Grimace Shake, but that still doesn't really erase the history of Ronald. And then other than the occasional little videos made on their socials, as of recording this video, the last public appearance I've been able to find of Ronald was at Grimace's birthday party this year, and I actually remember like being in shock when I saw those videos, because I really just can't remember the last time I saw him. Though guys, I saw him the other day. McDonald's invited me to this preview event in Times Square to celebrate their new adult meal, which is all based on McDonaldland, and who was there? Ronald himself, and even in a more updated getup. And I just couldn't believe it. Ronald McDonald, and he was there with the rest of the gang, Grimace, Birdie, and the Hamburglar. And this whole thing was very surreal, and if you want to see more about my experience, I posted a short about it the other day. But this was now the perfect opportunity to answer the question that's been on everybody's mind.
Where have you been? McDonaldland, baby. I travel the country and I go to events all over the time, all over the place. And I don't know if you're aware, but because we're here today, we're unveiling something very special. So coming up very soon, and you might have already seen pictures of me floating around the internet. You might see a little bit of movement from me and my friends at McDonaldland very, very soon. So just a little teaser.
So yes, McDonaldland. We should have known all along. And of course, pushing the McDonaldland meal a little bit there too. I'll also say that I was chatting with him throughout this event, and prior to recording that bit, he did say something along the lines of at one point there being an oversaturation of Ronald on your TV, which I definitely get. So while some of our theories might have been a little outlandish, I think we did find out what happened, just too much Ronald. So he just spends some more time in McDonaldland with all his buddies, and now when he steps into the limelight, it makes national headlines. So really, kind of a win-win. Though, you know, we'd always love to see more of him.
Ronald and the whole McDonaldland crew made McDonald's feel like more than just food. It was this whole universe. I think bringing him back could be actually really fun.
Ronald, we miss you. Be great to see you a few times. And if you want to play in a Nerf battle, pick up the phone, man.
I would love to see Ronald McDonald back. Actually, I don't think that. I know that for a fact.
I feel like he would totally kill it with all these TikTok trends.
I would love for Ronald McDonald to return, maybe in a Macy's Day Parade as one of those big balloons. Maybe someone pokes him with a knife and he deflates everywhere. That'd be quite the spectacle.
Okay, maybe most of us would. I do want to thank all the creators that hopped in for this video. Be sure to check them out. All their info will be in the description. And of course, thanks again to McDonald's for inviting me to that preview event. Just super fun. And as always, to you all, thanks for watching.
McDonaldland, baby.